Hey guys, I'm Mike Caviani. I'm the Director of Life-Saving Operations here at Austin Pets Live, and we're going to be taking the next step with your recall skills in this video. So there's the introduction to recall in another video that you should have watched before this. So if you haven't watched that, turn this off, go to the introduction to recall. All right, this is going to be the next step. This is when we're ready for the next challenge. We're by no means ready to be completely off leash out in public yet, but we're getting there, right? So to be ready for this step, you should have been pretty polished now and consistent at a regular leash length, so 6-foot leash or so, with your dog coming to you and called consistently in a variety of contexts or environments, right? You've been able to do that out on walks, you've been able to do that at the park, you've been able to do it in your yard and in the house, and at the end of your leash, when you say come, your dog is coming, and it's not requiring a lot of your footwork and your movement that we covered in the beginning, in the beginner class. So that's where we want you to be as like a prerequisite for this video, okay? This video is now taking the next step. We're going to be working on kind of transitioning to more realistic scenarios, and we're going to be transitioning to longer distance, okay? So we're gonna add a long line to the equation. At first we were just using that 6-foot normal walking leash. Now we're going to use a leash specifically kind of made to give your dog more freedom, but still not absolute freedom. So they're still on like a 15, 20, 25-foot leash. So we're changing the environment and we're changing the distance. And then we might have some distractions show up because whenever you're changing the environment, distractions occur, all right? These are the things you want to proof before getting to actual legitimate off-leash. You want to know that your dog's been able to do it from varying distances, varying environments, and varying distractions to know that you're ready to actually go full-on off-leash. So that's what we're going to show in this video, is this kind of middle of the road. We're reaching the next challenge, but we're not ready for full-on off-leash yet. So let's see how that goes. You're going to see Amy Jones, as usual, working with one of our adoptable dogs here at APA. All right, so intermediate recall. You've worked with your dog on a regular 6-foot leash, inside and outside. You've watched that video, you've practiced, it's going great. So now it's time for the next step. So next step would be a long line, giving your dog more distance to be away from you, more practice on recall when they're far away, but still having ultimately control over the dog by having them on a long line still. In case they get distracted or just choose not to come to you, you can still make it happen. So Amy's got Banjo here on a long line. We're out in an open field, which is a great place to start working on this without a lot of distractions. And he's got probably about 20 feet or so. Amy's got some delicious treats on her to reward him for whenever he comes to her. Now those delicious treats may also make your dog glued to you, which is I think what's happening right now with Banjo. But Amy's moving away, she calls for it, he gets to her, she rewards him, and now she frees him, right? So remember, the same rules apply. Come means come, sit, stay until further notice. So she calls it, great, boom, mark and reward him for coming, planting that butt down, and now free, and now he can do his thing again. So you can come out to an open field, let your dog be a dog, let him walk around, let him sniff what he wants to sniff, let him have fun, but every so often, you call for that recall, he gets to you, you reward him, you free him again to go have some more fun. If he doesn't come, you can back it up, right? You can use your feet like we've shown you in the first video, and you can reel him in a little bit with that long line if he's not coming to you. So just make it fluid, make it fun, right? Remember the whole don't just call your dog back to you when the fun's over. So you're out on a nice walk. Since he has so much room, from a safety perspective, make sure you're picking a pretty open, quiet area, right? You don't want to give your dog all this freedom in a crowded area. You don't want to be that guy that's dog is, dive bombing into people who aren't interested in petting your dog. So go to a quiet, private area and work on this recall. So Banjo's got all the space, he's got lots of space, lots of room to run. Those delicious treats are there to really, motivate your dog to come check in with you, right? You have to find something that's yummy enough to be meaningful when your dog has this much freedom. So Amy calls for it, he gets to her, mark and reward, and then free when she's ready to free him, free. And now he's got some room to frolic still. So that long line is important, you guys, right? You don't want to jump from regular 6-foot leash to off leash. Perfect. Because your dog might take, all right, well, I'm at 12 feet away from you now, and now you can't make me come. So you know what? I'm not going to come. And then you can't do anything about it. So that long line is a great intermediate step to move on to the next challenge of having even more distance away. But still, again, you have the ultimate control, and you still can make it happen if your dog gets distracted. So these are some nice, smooth repetitions with Amy and Banjo. Little side plug. Banjo is a senior citizen. He learned all of this here with us while he was sheltered. So the whole old dogs can't learn new tricks thing, I think he pretty much blows that out of the water because he's got some pretty awesome recall. He's kind of an obedience rock star, and he learned that at about age 8, I want to say, and so that's pretty cool. So your dog's at home, don't be discouraged. Banjo learned all sorts of stuff as an older dog, and look how much fun he's having doing it. So it can be some trial and error, you guys, on the kind of treats you use. If your dog doesn't like treats, you might have to bring a toy with you, and when the dog gets to you, they get a quick little play session with that toy, and then you free him up to go frolic around again too. But that's pretty much the basics. Same thing that you were doing on a 6-foot leash, you're just doing it on a longer leash, and you're doing it out in different environments. So remember that, right? So we first had 6-foot leash indoors. Now we want you to do 6-foot leash in different environments. Now let's go long line indoors, long line different environments, right? Change the environment. We've got a distraction of a kitty behind us. We'll see if that kitty is interesting to Banjo or not, but he might not even notice the kitty. But that's a perfect example of, all right, great, we're outside, that's going well. Banjo's coming towards the camera. Nice. And then you might have different distractions show up. You want to be able to proof your dog through all those distractions before you're ready to be actually completely off leash, right? And you may decide we're never going to do complete off leash. That's okay. But just being able to give your dog the freedom of having this long leash and then being able to still rely on that recall is also phenomenal. But you also teach recall in case your leash comes off, right? You may have made the decision, you know what, my dog's not really a candidate to do off-leash outings for various reasons. That's fine, that's responsible. But hey, stuff happens sometimes, right? You might drop your leash by accident. The leash may come off by accident. So if you've put this work in to proof that recall, the hope is that when that happens, your training can be relied on to get you out of a sticky situation. I bet if Banjo's leash were to come off or Amy accidentally dropped that leash, I bet you when push comes to shove, if she called for that recall, he'd know what that meant and he'd come to her. He sees the kitty. Let's see how this recall goes. Boom, perfect, right? He saw the kitty, his ears perked up. Amy called for that recall and he beelined right to her. He's interested again. So again, not ready for off leash, right? Amy calls for it, he comes. That's great. So that's great practice. That tells me he's doing phenomenally with his training, tells me he's got some great recall. He's interested in that kitty. I'm glad we're still on long line, but it looked to me like without any hesitation, though, he came to Amy as soon as she called for it. So that's a really good example of how distractions can come up. And if your dog's not on a long line, you may or may not make it through that training session successfully. So she called for it there. He hesitated. That little bit of leash pressure motivated him to come back, all right? So that's a perfect example on the spot of he's doing phenomenally, but he's not quite ready for complete off leash, right? There was that moment there of hesitation of like, oh, I want to come, but that kitty's so interesting. And okay, I have to come. All right, so always end every training session on a good note. So not that was a bad note, I think he still did phenomenally, but let's get, now that the kitty's gone, let's get like one more really solid session of recall, like one more repetition of recall, and always end your training sessions on a solid note. I will call that solid right there. That was great, and that's a great place to end. So now Amy can, kind of tell him like, all right, free, we're good, we're done, training session's over. She's gonna shorten her leash up now and not give him as much freedom. And that's the end of the recall session. So that was phenomenal. Great work, Banjo. Great work, Amy. And great work, all of you guys at home, practicing this, proofing this, and making your dogs the best they can be. Thanks, guys.